Okay, so we are welcoming back Michelle. So we're going to have a little chat about Yoga Nidra today, I believe. And I think what would be really useful from my point of view, especially, is to really understand what Yoga Nidra is. Maybe to explain maybe some of the differences between Yoga Nidra, maybe to explain differences about relaxation, meditation, breathwork therapies, and where Yoga Nidra, is it different? Is it the same thing? Because I think there's a lot of confusion out there, I think, because yoga, I think certainly in the last 5 years, I would say, has become much more known and much more broad. I think, going back 20 years, I think people used to think yoga was just basically Madonna with a bit of string on her arm doing some power yoga, and everybody seemed to get into that, and that's what people thought was yoga. But I think now yoga is becoming a much broader topic. As anybody who has done yoga for many years like yourself, I think your understanding of yoga is probably very different to somebody like me and my understanding of yoga. And it's only from knowing the yoga teachers that I've met in the last kind of 5 years that I've really appreciated that yoga isn't this kind of downward dog and putting your leg around your neck and all that sort of stuff. So I think it would be really useful to to maybe kind of help explain what Yoga Nidra is, especially because I think people see that on any timetable and think, I have no idea what that is. But also, maybe just to have a little explanation about yoga as a whole, but with that little emphasis on Yoga Nidra.
Yoga Nidra, okay. So let me first say then, so yoga is a system of philosophy to wellness and wholeness. So it isn't just an exercise system, which is what it's become a lot more in the West. And yes, we can get there through the body. We know that. So a lot of people go to yoga for exercise and relaxation, which is fine. And other people go into yoga for deep self-healing, peacefulness and calm, and for spirituality. So it covers a whole spectrum. But the West has kind of focused more on the physical, if you like. But right. We're moving a little bit out of that. So originally, the asana, the exercise part of yoga, was obviously to keep the body healthy, but it is to allow the body to sit for longer in meditation. That is the key.
Right. Okay.
Philosophy, it's very different to what people think.
So I don't think people probably know that that's what the yoga postures were initially designed for.
Yeah, so we've kind of taken it off, we've swerved it off in a way, westernized it, which is fine. And it has become popular, and it leads many people on a pathway to inner peace. And for my own background, I started yoga with my mum when I was 20, and I had a bit of back pain, and that's what I went for. And I was surprised we never got kicked out. Me and my mum used to share a blanket in the relaxation at the end and start getting the giggles. And sharing a blanket, how ridiculous. We still laugh about it now. But it awakened something in me. And I wanted to get into the deeper aspects of it and got more into the meditation side, which is what led me to go and live in the yoga community in Italy. And whilst they do physical yoga, it's a lot more around meditation as a pathway to peace and empowerment, if you like. So I'm going to come from it from a bit more of a general basis. So if we get into talking about, so you've got yoga postures, which everybody understands, and we have many different aspects. You can do a flow class that's very strong. You can do a really gentle class where you're using supports and it's more meditative anyway. So there's different styles of yoga. But if we get into the meditative side of yoga, you could say that Yoga Nidra is the meditative heart of yoga. And it's a bit of a misnomer because it's got the word yoga in there. Obviously people think it's about movement. And here's the good news. Yoga Nidra is about laying on your back with a blanket and an eye pillow and being guided through something that's deeply relaxing. So it is difficult because it's difficult to pinpoint it again, because you have people think it's a relaxation at the end of yoga on a normal yoga class, or they think it's yoga, proper yoga,
Right.
So it isn't either of those.
What, so the 10 minutes or 15 minutes that everybody absolutely looks forward to at the end of a class,
Yeah.
that isn't Yoga Nidra?
Sometimes if it's being taught by a Yoga Nidra teacher, but
Right.
often it's just a relaxation and a little float off on a cloud somewhere, which is lovely. I'm not saying anything about that. It's wonderful. And if I do a yoga class and I have a 5 or 7 minute relaxation, I wouldn't put people through a Yoga Nidra because it's a much more in-depth experience. So just very briefly, you've got, then the next question often comes to me as a meditation and a Yoga Nidra teacher, what's the difference?
Yeah.
So there's overlaps. They're both pathways inward to finding peacefulness within ourselves. I mean, the obvious difference is meditation you do sitting and Yoga Nidra you do lying, but there's reasons for that.
I was going to say, what are the reasons that one would be lying down and one would be sitting? And does Yoga Nidra have to be done lying down, or if somebody couldn't lie on their back for 45 minutes or an hour, can you actually do it a different way? Is it still effective? Does it?
Yeah, you can do Yoga Nidra lying on your back. You can adapt it to be on the side of the body. You can do it in a chair if you want to. So there's different ways of doing it. Whereas formal meditation, you sit and you're upright and you've got the spine aligned, stacked up well so that the energy can really flow. And you're bringing all the energy up to what's called the sixth chakra, the point between the eyebrows in yoga. And what we're doing there is we anchor in classic meditation, we anchor the mind on something. So it's usually the breath or a mantra or a mixture of the two. And every time the mind wanders, we're pulling it back, we're pulling it back, we're pulling it back. And then that starts to take us deeper. And usually the deeper aspect of meditation is it's an offering to the divine. It's a real offering, it's communion, if you like. So it does bring us into a place of stillness. And it can be an offering as well as a way to just calm down the mind. So it can be used as a stress reliever if you don't want to go into the deeper aspects. So as soon as we start to work with breath, for example, as the breath begins to come under our control and we start to work with it, the mind automatically follows suit.
Because that from what you've just said there, the meditation side of it, that sounds almost like something a lot harder to achieve. And I think when you were saying about the physical yoga postures, I think, like you say, you're sitting, you're aligning your spine. And I know from my point of view that a lot of people can't even sit with an aligned spine. So actually it makes sense that the yoga postures are designed to actually achieve that outcome of being able to meditate. And is that ultimately the goal of the yoga postures, is meditation, and Yoga Nidra is again a completely separate element? Because from what you were saying, the meditation is that sounds quite hard to me. The meditation sounds like, well, I'm not sure if that's for me, based on sounds quite a hard discipline.
The technique is really easy, but it's an accumulative practice. So even 10 minutes a day can really change the brain structure and start to work with things. But it's a discipline. You've got to sit for 10 minutes a day or half an hour a day, whatever it is that you choose to. What I like about meditation is it gives people, like I teach often on my workshops, I would teach meditation and put people into Yoga Nidra so they get the experience of both, but I'm giving them something they can go away with. And you can meditate standing in the queue, which is quite handy at the moment, considering we're not to get into
or you can meditate sitting down, which is quite handy at the moment because we're sitting down all bloody day anyway.
So you're very independent with meditation. I could just sit now and go into it, start watching my breath, start working with a mantra and take my awareness inward. So it's an instant sort of pull you back to center, which is brilliant. And I'm a big fan of meditation and teaching it to whoever's willing. I would teach it to the whole world if I had my way.
I think, like you say, it's the same with anything. You're not going to make any body changes or mind changes unless you actually practice it regularly. It's the same. You're not going to lose weight unless you actually commit to eating less, or you're not going to train your muscles to do something different unless you commit to training it 3 times a week, 4 times a week. So
absolutely,
I think a lot of people think, well, I can lie down for an hour a week with my iPod on and that's meditation. But from what you're saying, it's kind of like it's a completely different discipline to that.
Yeah, and also, meditation isn't about anything outside of you. It's about withdrawing the energy into the inner spine and bringing the energy up into the higher consciousness, if you like. So it's really, on a simple level, it calms down anxiety, it works with stress, it can help with pain management and all of that. But ultimately, we're not focusing on anything out there like we would do with mindfulness or yoga nidra. We are concentrating fully inside. We're internalizing, and that's
Right.
where that rock of utter stillness and calmness is how we find it.
So just on the meditation front, I'm keen to talk about how that differs from yoga nidra as well. On the meditation front, I can imagine people with very busy minds and maybe are a little bit anxious and stressed, maybe getting quite frustrated that they can't do it. So
it depends.
If that is the case, is something like yoga nidra, is that a better thing to maybe start with, or is it a completely separate thing? Would you say to people, if you're struggling, if you're really busy, then maybe a visualization practice might be better to start with, maybe a breath work practice? What are the kind of levels that we're talking about, I suppose, really, of discipline discipline and practice?
Yeah, it depends on somebody's motivation. If they're coming from sleep deprivation or pain management, they're not going to be so interested in having a conversation with a higher reality, so they want to come to a basic level. So yoga nidra is, I do both. I love both. So here's where the crossovers start to come in. So yoga nidra, for somebody who doesn't want to know anything about the other side of it, or who has a goal that's different, to come to a class or do a recording where you lie down, you're really comfortable, you're warm, you're supported, you're safe, and you get talked through. So with yoga nidra, it's called yoga nidra, means yogic sleep. So we go into that hypnagogic state between sleep and awake. In meditation, we're totally awake. So we're floating in and out of different levels of consciousness in yoga nidra. But you don't need to know any of that. That's the beauty of it. You can just come in, and women have come into my classes who've never done it before and just went, what on earth was that? That was amazing. Floated home and then called in the next day to say, oh my God, I slept like a baby last night. So you don't need to know anything about meditation. That's the great thing about it. So it's great for people that are having sleep problems, who need a bit of pain management, who just need to let go and stop. It's deep rest for the body and the mind, and most importantly for the nervous system. So for example, people that are suffering from stress and anxiety, it originates in the nervous system. We're on that hyper aroused state. That's what anxiety is. It's been in that fight or flight rather than the rest and digest state of being. So yoga nidra, meditation works on the nervous system as well, but I'm going to concentrate on nidra because it really does work on the health of the nervous system. So who I trained with, which was iRest, that's I.rest. It stands for integrative restoration. And in those times when you're floating in and out of being asleep and awake, there's a real deep healing going on in the nervous system. So where the nervous system's all like this, yoga nidra goes, it kind of just comes back into line. So it's deeply healing, and it's really good for anything that originates in the nervous system, which
everything does.
Yeah.
I think you said there about the hyper aroused state of the nervous system, and I know certain conditions like fibromyalgia, those sorts of conditions, chronic fatigue type syndromes, post-viral syndromes, all those sorts of things. I think they, from the sound of it, they sound like they could really respond to that sort of therapy, because if your nervous system is actually calmed, then your nervous system is in a better state to accept other things, to be able to progress. So
absolutely. So it works on that level, and then it also works on teaching us to be the witness of our lives. So when you get into the practices of yoga nidra, it works with really grounding us in the body, because this is what we take with us through life. It's no good, you can't work with somebody who's stressed if they're not in their body. So it goes through this cycle in the body consciousness where you get in touch with different parts of the body. So you're really in the body, which is grounded. So it gets us on the earth where we need to be. So a lot of people are off in their heads all the time. You need to get back down to ground. So Yoga Nidra is great for that. It works with breath awareness, which again is healing. And then it goes into working with thoughts and feelings and beliefs. And it's a system for working, looking at the opposites. Like, you know, in life we have pleasure and pain, joy and sorrow, happiness and sadness, anger and calmness. We can experience both during a session of Yoga Nidra, as you're talked through, and actually start to realize that we can hold both at the same time, and then step back beyond that and realize that actually none of that's who we really are. So it's a deep meditative practice if you want it to be that, or it's a super deep relaxation and a resting of the nervous system. But all this stuff happens without you having to understand what's happening, or without doing anything. So you're guided through, I guide people through imagery, or I might ask questions, and it's just a great tool for changing, you know, a lot of the beliefs that we have. Let's take a common one, is I should have done this, or I should have done that better, I really screwed up there. And we can beat ourselves up, and it's common, you know, this inner critic that we have can beat us up, and that can create pain and problems. And in Yoga Nidra, I might in a longer, deeper session say, okay, take a belief that you have about yourself and really feel into that, and then take the opposite. And the opposite can be, I did the best that I knew how at the time. And look at my body energy, something just dissolves. If we can take that belief next to it, you know, we can just transform our way of thinking, and it all starts here. So I'm probably going a bit into the practice of it here, but it's just a brilliant system.
Well, I think from a person that hasn't really experienced it, I think I did one class. I found it really hard to do because I didn't like being still, and found it really hard to switch off, and I think I might have been a bit uncomfortable and that sort of stuff. Is it something that is it like a scripted thing, or is it the same thing every week, or do you,
well,
is it like a visualization? Is it like the apps that you've got available to us now with kind of Calm and Headspace and things like that have become very popular?
Yeah.
Is it like one of those? Because a lot of people might be thinking, well, I've got that on my phone, so
no,
I'll just do that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the Headspace stuff and the meditation apps take you off on little visualizations and different stuff, or mantra meditations. I think they have their place, but it's not the same as Yoga Nidra. And the one thing I would say about the apps is what can happen, and this can create a real impact badly on the nervous system, on the brain, is people take a different meditation every day, and that's going to spin you out quicker than anything. You're going to get the adverse effect from doing that. It's like there's something in us, our mind likes to know. When I sit down to do my normal meditation practice, my mind is like, oh, we're doing that, great, and it settles in, and it's cumulative. If I was doing a different meditation practice every day, I'd be going crazy. Actually, it kind of spins, it can do the opposite. And Yoga Nidra works through, we're getting into the deeper aspects of yoga here, but it works through the layers of consciousness. There are things called koshas, so I won't go into all of that, but there is a structure to it that is followed. You know, if somebody does a Yoga Nidra for you and they're not doing body, they're not doing Yoga Nidra. And often, you know, people that are running a relaxation are calling it a Yoga Nidra, and it's something different. It's very structured. However, there are scripts that you can read. I tend to work more intuitively. I don't read scripts. I tend to work with who I've got in front of me and what's needed for that session. I just keep an eye on everybody. And
so potentially what you're saying is that if you went to a yoga center and did a Nidra class in one place, that could be very different to something that's called a Yoga Nidra somewhere else. It's not, you won't get the same experience.
Nidra on a deeper level is therapeutic. All right, it's really therapeutic, and it's big growth. There's big self growth that goes on in it, as well as all the deep relaxation. But you'll go to a lot of classes where they'll just read a script at the end and you can hear it. I can, I suppose I know the difference. And actually, when you really hold space for Yoga Nidra on a deeper level, you've got to be aware of what you're doing and where you're taking people, because deep change can come from it, and it can evoke some stuff. If you do a 10-15 minute one at the end of, I tend to do mixed classes and do a 10 to 15 minute Yoga Nidra, so we're not going into all the really deep stuff all the time. But if I do a 40-minute class, it's going to take you more on a journey, and it's space for that, so I wouldn't be reading something from a script.
So again, do you think is Yoga Nidra, is it something that is specifically targeted at people that are in that anxious stress state, or would you say that actually everybody should be doing it because nobody pays attention to this part of our life?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting for me that the classes that I'm doing online at the moment, where I'm usually doing movement and Yoga Nidra meditation, I've changed them into yoga and meditation, because at times like this, everybody needs it. And in fact, the way that we live our lives is so much stress and anxiety in people's lives, or too much fast movement. We all need it. Actually, it's suitable for everybody, and that's the joyful thing. You don't have to understand what's going on, you just get taken through it, and then you come out and you're like, that was really nice, thank you very much, and off you trot home. But the cumulative effect, it teaches us to find that unchangeable, immovable rock within us that is not affected by what's going on outside. It's that safe space that we can come back to of calm and peacefulness, and it's always there, but we can never hear it, we can never get in touch with it because we're too busy. But when we slow down the mind, the thinking, the body, and take the awareness inwards, in stillness and in silence, that's where we touch it. We come in and we come home to ourselves, really. That's how I describe meditation and Yoga Nidra. It's a route for coming home to ourselves and finding that unchangeable thing inside of us. And once we're in contact with that, it reduces stress anyway, because we're not dependent on everything outside of us to make us happy. Happiness is something dependent on outside things, whereas joy is something innate. It's in us. It's not dependent on anything.
So what advice would you give, I suppose, to somebody potentially like myself who, struggles with that stillness, that slowness? And there's lots of people that I know from doing my treatments that would kind of go, oh my God, I couldn't do that because I just can't switch my brain off. I'd get really irritated.
I would ask them,
is there a different avenue into it, or would it be better to kind of, maybe rather than joining an existing class, would that be too much of a leap? Because I think when I personally, it felt like I kind of went in at the wrong level almost. It felt like I needed a bit of a baby class to go into to build me up to it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it shouldn't really feel like that, but I would say for my classes that I do would be to come to a yoga class that has like a 10-15 minute at the end, and you don't have to do it lying down. You do it in a position that's that you find comfortable. And here's the thing, if you come into it at the end of a yoga class, you've been moving, the mind has already slowed down, so the resistance to not moving is gone. If you've been out like that all day and you come in and you have to lie straight down, there might be some people love that. Personally, I can just quite happy to come in and lie down. Suits me fine. Rather do that than go for a run. That's who I am.
I think I would all rather do that than go for a run. But so potentially that kind of that split class doing, because that to me sounds much more appealing. That sounds like actually doing some movement that focuses me on that movement, and then doing that actually really appeals to me. But doing a class that goes straight into that for an hour, I kind of go, I think it's also prioritizing time for it, because a lot of people would think, well, why am I going to go to a class to lie down for an hour and pay for it? Do you know what I mean? But I think it's kind of understanding what that gives them to understand kind of what the product of that is, as to why we need it and how we need it. But maybe there are other avenues into that, rather than going straight into that Yoga Nidra. Maybe there are different avenues that might suit different sorts of people.
Yeah, definitely. So if you can come into it at the end of a class to start with, and then from there you might feel like, actually, I am really working with something that I need to give some attention to, and you'd go to that for something else specific. So it's, and it's different people like different things. A lot of people love the sitting meditation. Other people would prefer to come to a restorative yoga class where you're doing postures, but with awareness. So it's movement in meditation. My class last Friday, instead of doing the sitting meditation that we usually do, I worked a lot with breath and also with posture, bringing them into, we don't just do yoga without thinking about what we're doing. We're bringing our awareness inside the body. So we're starting to slow down, and then that makes it much easier. It makes meditation or Yoga Nidra much more accessible.
Yeah.
Really started to slow down.
Yeah, I think that's the bit that I think I will take from this conversation, that actually for me, I need to do something to get to that point. And if actually that slower sort of movement, not doing your high intensity classes, not actually doing something that slows it down initially, because by the time I've done that, I'll probably think, I'm probably ready to lie down and accept that now. We're quite looking forward to it, to be honest. I fancy it now.
Here's a little story for you. I was doing a long Yoga Nidra class, a dedicated Yoga Nidra class on a lunchtime, and somebody bounced into the room and she said, everyone was starting to lie down and put eye pillows on, it was like everyone's off for a little snooze. And she said, I'm in the wrong class. I thought I was coming for dynamic yoga or something like that. And I looked at her, I said, I actually think you're in the right class. Just come and try it. Come and try it. Come and so she did. And after, she was like, my goodness, I didn't ever think I'd be able to just come in and lie down and relax. But here's the thing, when you're guided through it, you're kind of helpless against it. It takes you inwards. So, a lot of it is demystifying. A lot of people have fear around meditative practice. They think it's austerity. You're going to be there, like transcendental meditation. There's certain things that have got real Vipassana meditation have these awful.
I think that's also quite important, because I think I've been to some yoga classes that are way too beardy weirdy for me, and I think a lot of people probably will laugh at me saying that, but probably I know there's lots of people kind of go, I totally know what you mean. Do you know what I mean? And I think once you start getting into that sort of slightly more spiritual, meditative rest style of yoga, I think people might kind of think you're going to be all wearing kind of hemp dresses and, chanting and splashing them with holy water and things like that. So I think it's important for people to know that it's potentially not going to be it's not about that.
Demystifying it, and it's accessible to everybody. It's useful for everybody. It doesn't have to be a deep spiritual practice. It's about, what actually causes most of our distress in life is our mind. And why is that? All right. Our mind is either in the past, hacking on about something that happened, should have done this, they shouldn't have done that, I wish this. Can't change that. We're in the past, or we're projecting off into the future. We're being run by our mind like craziness. Now, for example, in lockdown, is there any point in projecting into the future? We couldn't have foreseen this. Our futures have changed from what we wanted. So we use our minds for sort of planning and having an idea, but we need to stop that constant chatter. That's what drives us into stress, is this repetitive, non-stop. If you really stop and listen to your mind, you'll be like, good Lord, how many thoughts, madness goes through it all day long. That's just, a lot of rubbish, really.
Well, and I think that's the thing. It's the amount of attention we give to those thoughts that then manifest in our body. So if you're constantly allowing a thought of pain to enter your head, and you give that thought the time of day, and you give that thought the time of day to repeat itself, then you're going to experience more pain than somebody that just gets rid of that thought immediately. And it's like, no, not listening to it. And I think, pain ultimately does start in the brain, doesn't it? So I think that's quite important. If we could learn those aspects of kind of thought and mindful practices, then actually that's why it does have an effect on pain, on slowing down the nervous system.
Yeah. And actually, that's what I was going to say. It's like if we're in the past or in the future, we're not here now. We're missing life. Life only happens right here and right now. It doesn't happen in the future. We might not even get there. It certainly doesn't happen in the past. It's already been and gone. So they can inform our lives, but it shouldn't be where we're coming from. So people find, they don't have to have any interest in meditation as a spiritual path. It's about controlling the thing that gives us all the stress, illness, everything comes from the mind. So that's why I'm so interested in making it accessible to everybody. That's why doctors recommend it as well. It really it's learning to be the master of our mind rather than the mind being our master, because there's no healing, there's no peace to be found in the mind. So it's learning meditation, Yoga Nidra. It all gives us techniques and how to stay present. Like you just said, if we're constantly on thinking about this is really painful, it's going to get worse, we're affirming. The mind is powerful as well. So if we keep giving it a negative thought, it's going to pick it up and turn it into reality.
Take it and run with it. It's going to take it and run with it.
So for me, it's about mind control. Meditation is about, all right, for me personally, it's a path to a higher reality, and for a lot of people it can be that, but it's also key to it in everyday life for all of us is learning to control the mind. But we need to learn how to do that, and that's what Meditation Yoga Nidra does for us. It's excellent. It's awesome. I can't talk about it highly enough, and I wish everybody would come and learn it. So.
Well, it sounds like I might need to go and learn it, to be fair.
So hopefully that hasn't gone too convoluted into it's given some.
No, I think that's actually quite useful. I think it would be quite useful if people actually get to the end of this conversation. I think it's important to for the education. I think for the understanding of it, because I think once it's not once you get to the class, it's getting there in the first place, isn't it? So I think, or it's getting to that point where you can access that information or access that right avenue for you. So I think hopefully this will help people kind of maybe make a choice that suits them. And this we're not saying that this is for everybody, but actually maybe it's something to explore if you can understand what it is and what it isn't. I think
give it a go. Just give it a go.
Yeah, definitely. Perfect. Okay, well, I will sign us off now because the sun's come out and I think we're all struggling with our cameras at the angles that we've got them at. So thank you, Michelle, for that.
It's illuminated from the conversation. Look at that.
Right, I've got to try and find my off button. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. See you soon.
Cool. See you soon.
Wave Beats